Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Wacera Kamonji. I'm joining you from Edinburgh, UK, and I will be your host for this conversation. I am the program coordinator here at Africa in Motion. Africa in Motion is an annual African film festival taking place in Scotland, consisting of film screenings and complementary events. Now, in its 16th year, AIM has established itself as a major annual event with a Scottish cultural calendar, whilst also maintaining an international profile as one of the leading African platforms. We're so pleased to be screening the film A FISHTALE. A FISHTALE is about a man named Johnny who believes in the future of Africa. He lives in Israel, but he's dreamed of returning with a modern fish farming technique. His wife, Thérèse, sees little hope back home. She's determined to create the best possible future for her children, whatever the price may be. When their visa expires, tension between the two arises, leading to an inevitable clash. Emmanuelle Mayer, directorial debut, is a moving documentary portrait, pieced out of 10 years of intimate footage, emphasizing the profound gap between developing Africa and the West. The film contrasts male and female narratives and raises ideas of choice versus fate. I am delighted to welcome our guest, Emmanuelle Mayer, the director of this film. Emmanuelle is a French-born, Israeli-based casting director and documentary cinematographer. Since 2009, she has filmed as a director of photography over 15 feature-length documentaries, as well as a documentary television series in Israel, USA, Poland, France, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, UK, Italy, and Switzerland. The film she has shot have been broadcasted in POV, PBS, TRT World, Art, Yes Docu, Israeli Channel 8, 2, and 1, and they have been screened in her film festival. Hot Docs, Eighth Docs, IDFA, Doc Aviv, and Jerusalem Film Festivals. Her first feature documentary film as a director, A FISHTALE, was broadcasted on TRT World and won the Audience Award at Jerusalem Film Festival in 2009. And I'm very pleased to invite you again, Emmanuelle. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you feeling?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm just going to be asking you a little bit about the film. And the first question that I'm going to ask you is, how did you come to meet Johnny and Thérèse?
Well, first of all, the film was a very long journey. It's shot for over 10 years. And the first time I met Johnny was by mistake. I was an art student. I was studying in art school in my 20s, and I was just walking around the streets of South Tel Aviv, which is the area in Tel Aviv in which I live in, and where there's many migrant workers from all around the world. At the time, in the early 2000s, there were much more communities. Today, the situation has changed a little. And I was just filming and taking pictures. And I was invited into a church, a West African church. And they told me I can come up and I can film. And I was very interested, and I was filming. And then someone came up to me and was very noisy. There were guitars and drums, so I couldn't really hear what he was telling me. And he was saying something, camera, and I couldn't understand what he was telling me. I just said, okay, take my number and call me in a few days and we'll talk. And that was Johnny, and he called me a few days later. And he told me that he's a camera person, just like me. This is something that is not shown in the film at all. But this is how we met. And he said, I saw you with a camera and I need a teacher. Will you be my filming teacher? And I said, okay, interesting. Why not? Let's meet. And we met, and he came with his camera, and he had this amazing camera. It was a really good camera, much better than the one I had. And he told me, I don't know how to use it. I don't know anything, and I have no one to learn from. And it took me really months to understand what he was telling me, because he was saying, I have no one to learn from. There's this one camera person in the community that tells me I can work with him, but he won't teach me anything because he doesn't want me to make competition for him. So he wouldn't teach him anything, and he didn't have anyone else to learn from because the community is very, very separated in Israel of the migrant workers from Africa. The community is very closed. There's not much connection between Israelis and, unfortunately, and the community at the time. Today, this community hardly exists. And I was shocked because, I was saying to myself, there's so many ways to learn. You can open a YouTube video, you can order a book from eBay, I can ask my teachers. I had so many teachers at the time. I was a student. And I just realized that this man I just met had none of these options, and no access to any of that knowledge. And that's what makes Johnny so wise, I think, and because he's a doer. Yeah. Saw me and he said, okay, this is an opportunity. Maybe she'll be my teacher. He outreached me. He tried this. And I did. I became his teacher. And I taught him everything I knew. And he became a photographer in the community. He even employed me once or twice as a co-photographer, working with him for weddings and for events. And that helped him move forward, earn more money. And for a few years, I was just his pipeline to knowledge. Anything he wanted to learn, he had ideas twice a week. He had new ideas. I want to learn Photoshop. I want to learn editing. I want to know how to use Facebook. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I would just teach him everything I knew. And at a certain point, I started asking him if I could film his family, his wife. They had one boy at the time, Innocent, was just born. And they said, okay. They didn't really understand why I would be interested in filming them, but they said, okay. And I was just filming and hanging out with them because I liked being with them and I liked their food and I liked just speaking to them. And at a certain point, they started talking about going back to Africa. And that's when I said, okay, I think this could be interesting because seeing a family like this and the way I started to know more Johnny and know Thérèse and how they are very special people, and a child born in Israel speaking Hebrew, what would it be like for them to go back there? And this is when I started realizing I wanted to not only just film here and there, but to make a film about them. I had no idea things would turn out the way they did. I think that the friendship and the intimacy that was that happened because of this friendship allowed me to be there at the moments when things happened later on. But this is, I think it's a very special thing for me in a film because this film grew out of friendship and not the other way around. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why it lasted for 10 years, I think.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And you can actually see, like during the duration of the film, how comfortable Johnny feels letting us into his life, kind of showing us like the intimate sides of his life. From the wedding, hanging out with the kids, him learning new fishing techniques, and him working as a cleaner. So you can definitely see that there's a relationship between him and the camera and yourself, and that kind of budding friendship with how much he's letting you guys in. But yeah, thank you so much for that. My next question is, currently living in Israel and having lived there for quite a while, what is the attitude when it comes to immigration, considering that many Western African countries, consider African immigrants, especially who are from a low economic background, as an issue and as a problem that has to be dealt with. We're currently seeing now, there's still a massive wave of immigration because with many African countries, the economy is a little bit rocky and a little bit shaky, and they see places like the UK, France, and even Israel now as an opportunity to kind of get a leg up in the world, oftentimes, sending all that money that they work for back home to build a better life for themselves. back home?
Actually, that's a good question, and it's changed over the years. I think I will make a separation between policy and people, because the policy in Israel is difficult for immigrants from all around the world who are non-Jew. Because Israel is a Jewish country and there's no other country in the world that is only belongs to one religion. So the rules in Israel are very keeping it Jewish. So keeping it Jewish means a lot of times being very difficult towards non-Jews who want to come to Israel, being very welcoming to Jews who want to come to live in Israel, but non-Jews, very difficult. Even couples who get married between a Jew and a non-Jew, it can be difficult for them. So the policy is difficult, and I would like to see it very, very different, because immigrants come here and many times they cannot stay a lifetime at all. Even if children are born here, they don't get the right to stay or to get even a visa for a few years, or not to talk about the passport. Only very, very few have gotten the possibility to stay here as citizens. So this is the base, but I will separate, and I will also say that in the last 10, 15 years, there's been a big arrival from mostly Eritrea and also a little bit from Sudan, because Israel has a walking border with Egypt. So many people came by foot. This is a very different kind of arrival than the immigrant workers like Johnny, who came earlier in the end of the 90s, at the beginning of 2000. They came by flight, they came legally or half legally in order to work. But now there's many Africans coming from, or in the last 10, 15 years, from the Egyptian border by walk. And this is a very different population who flees from terrible wars. I don't need to tell you this. So here again, the policy is difficult. And Israel is not making it easy on the lives of the immigrants and the asylum seekers that are here now in Israel. But still, there's a big community. But aside the policy, there's many NGOs here, and many people who do everything to really help. And I've seen this closely. So I'm not saying their life is easy, but it does make me, or give me hope to see many people try to make their life easier. And I think that for Johnny, one of the reasons that he decided to leave eventually was because he was saying, this is getting too hard. My children could be caught in the night and sent back to Africa, and this is something I don't want them to go through, and I'm stopping this, and I'm going to try to make a change. He had the possibility, many don't, because he was working here for so many years, and they managed to put some money aside, and also because of his character. As I said, he's a doer, and he's always thinking what to do next and planning and thinking ahead. I don't think he regrets his years here. If he looks back, maybe if you ask him, he may tell, maybe I should have gone to Europe. By now, I would have been a citizen probably, instead of going to Israel in those years. But that doesn't count, because you can't really think of what I should have done. He did what he thought he wanted to do at the time. And his possibility to arrive to Israel was because his sister was here and she helped him come. And I think for Africans, Israel is a symbol, and Jerusalem and Nazareth and the holy places. So this is also something that brought the African communities of West Africa, at least in those years, here.
All right, amazing. Wow. A lot of insight there, and definitely also a lot of reading up to do when it comes to migration and Israel. Thank you so much. Outside of filming Johnny and Teresa, what's the attitude amongst fellow Africans? Do they think more similarly to Johnny, where they see, an opportunity in Israel to make a life for themselves, or more like Teresa, considering the anti-immigration protests that have taken place in Israel in the past?
Mhm. Johnny is very particular in his way of thinking. I've not met any other migrant who was as much as him wanting to go back to his homeland and to make a real change there. Most people, and I'm saying this in totally non-critic way, of course,
Yeah.
toward Thérèse or anyone who thinks, but most people think more like Thérèse. Let's think of our children. What are our best possibilities? Let's think of the future of our children. If we can stay in Israel, if we can stay in Europe, this would be the best. Life is so different. Our children have been born in the West. We cannot go back there. There's no future in Africa, no real future. This is the voices that I've heard. And this is why I thought Johnny's voice was so particular, because he decided this from strength. He said, I'm strong enough to go back to the place I love. And even though I think there's many things there that should be different, I want to be part of the change. And I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to study how to produce fish, which is a continuation of his father's profession, who was a traditional fisherman. But I want to bring technology, I want to bring change, I want to succeed myself, but to bring a real change back there. So I think he was very particular and very different from the people that I've seen. And I don't know what it is about him that he can maybe see 5 or 6 steps forward and imagine what he will benefit at the end. But then again, there's life and what happens in life, and whoever sees the film will see that that wasn't enough for him. This time.
Yeah, because he also had family and kids back home, a large extended family, and kids with Teresa prior to them moving to Israel. So I think that maybe also was the other reason why he, there was that fight.
Definitely. Having their older children, their twins that they had left when they were 4 months old. I hadn't seen them for 12 years. Definitely. This was something at the beginning when I met them, I didn't even know about those twins. Only later on in our friendship, they told me, we have children, we haven't seen them for a very long time, we speak to them, not so much. And definitely this is something that they were thinking of course.
Yeah, my gosh. So when Teresa was preparing for her departure, how did you find out that she had decided against following her husband back to Ghana?
Well, I found out because I took them to the airport. I filmed them. I said goodbye to them at the airport. Went back, took Johnny back home. And then I was waiting to hear from Johnny. How are they? Did they arrive? Are they happy there in the village? Did they enter the house that was built for them? And he wasn't answering my phone for my calls for maybe a week and a half. And I started being worried, and I said, okay, what's going on? This is very strange. Johnny always answers my calls. And then it's maybe 2 weeks later, he answered my call, and his voice was really broken. And he said, and I said, Johnny, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I'm worried. Are they okay? He said, something happened. Come by and I'll tell you. And of course, I came by without the camera. I came by as a friend to hear what happened. And that's when he told me she didn't arrive to our village. She's not there. And she called me, and she's in the Netherlands with the children, and she did what she did. She stopped in the transit flight and didn't continue to the flight going to Accra. And he was broken. He was really, really broken from this, and he didn't. It took him. I've never seen him like this.
Yeah.
It took him really a few weeks to get back on his feet and to make decisions. What next? How does this change his plans? What is he going to do? When I came to him, he had an aquarium with fish from the fish farm that he was growing at home. And when I came to him, he told me they had died, that he forgot to feed them, or I don't even remember what, but they had died during those weeks. And he told me that he kept them in the freezer. And I told him, why, Johnny? Why are you going to eat them? And he said, no, no way, I'm not going to eat them. But I just couldn't throw them away. So I froze them. And I think this was something very symbolic about how he felt about that dream that he had. That he understood that this dream is going to have to change, or make a fish farm back in Africa. And he just took those fish and put them in the freezer, froze that dream and that idea for the time being.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Kind of. Do you know like anything more? Did they get back? Did they like have a reconciliation? Did he restart his fish farm? I mean, I don't want to spoil it too much for the audience and just blurt out the whole film, as tempting as it is. But any more news?
Yes, or? I will tell you. I will say. I just finished talking to him 10 minutes ago. We speak often.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is that after 2 years back in Africa, when he was back in Africa with his older children and his home, he found a way to get to Europe and to join Thérèse. And they moved to Belgium, the whole family together. And the real miracle happened about more than a year ago already, I think, is that they managed to bring the older twins, who by that time were almost 17, to join them in Belgium. And today they're living together, whole family, 2 parents, 5 children who have never lived together before, who have never met before, but have the same mother and same father. They're all living together. They all speak Dutch, even the big ones already.
Nice.
And they have work, they go to school, they have a good life today. And this is practically a miracle, all these steps.
Yeah.
But I chose to finish the film the way I did, which is without a happy end, because I felt that both Johnny and Thérèse had to made very harsh decisions because of what they believed in, but they had to pay a price, and a very, very, very difficult price. And the least I could do is to show that in the film and not give us a candy at the end as viewers and saying, and they lived happily ever after. No, I wanted to say, at this moment, at this difficult moment of their decisions and the price that they had to pay for these decisions.
Yeah. But it's good that they finally managed to, reunite the whole family. Because definitely watching the film and seeing the heartbreak on both sides and kind of knowing that the sacrifice that both are making to make a better life, not only for themselves, but for their kids and for the rest of the family back home, you could see it was a very hard decision. And, the love that was there at the same time, I guess sometimes when you're caring about your future can overtake the love that you have within the relationship. So it's good to hear that they're all together again, living happily and healthily. And so my final question is, what were the challenges and the benefits of filming over a 10-year period?
Mhm. The first and the biggest challenge is that I actually did this film with no budget whatsoever, which means that I did try to get in Israel, when you make a documentary film, you can pre-sell it to a documentary channel, and there's also other options. And all the options that I checked, they seemed not interested in the story or didn't believe that the film would come out interesting or well. Or it was my first film also as a filmmaker. I was working as a cinematographer in other people's films. So I think the biggest challenge was to continue because I didn't even know if anyone would ever see it.
Yeah.
And of course, I had to work all the time. I could only work on my film in the evenings or on weekends, or suddenly when I had a little less work. So I would say, okay, I'm sitting on this, I'm doing some editing, I'm watching footage, I'm thinking about this, I'm filming more. But this is something that I did aside of all the rest because I had no budget. So this was, I think, the money issue was one thing, but I think more the moral issue, because I was saying, okay, I'm getting all these no's all the time. Everyone's saying no, no, no. So maybe they were right. Maybe I just shouldn't tell this story, and no one's going to be interested, and it's not going to work. So I think the hardest thing was just to say, okay, I got to know. I didn't do anything for 3 months, but now I have to get up again, and this is something strong. I believe in it, and I want to continue. I have no idea if anyone's going to ever see it, but I still want to continue. And for me, after these 10 years, the first yes I received was from Jerusalem Film Festival, which is a very big and important festival in Israel. I sent them the rough cut of the film, and they called me and they said, we want it in our competition and we love it. And I said, wow, this is the first yes I've gotten for like all these years. And this was something so special for me. And it gave me the energy. And I said, okay, I need to close the film now. I need to finish it. I'm going to take a loan and I'm going to find a way just to finish it, because post-production and all those things are things I cannot do by myself. I did all the rest mostly by myself. With a friend who's an editor, Naomi Amit, who was along with me and not getting paid and helping me a lot. And then I did it. And in the festival, we received both the audience award and another award from a festival in New York, who later on invited us, Other Israel. And then the film started moving around the world and had its own journey, and people were reacting to it. And festivals, African festivals, fishermen festivals, just other festivals around the world were showing the film. And I was meeting people online, or before Corona, I was also actually meeting real people face to face. And it's just amazing that this film has its own journey, and it was sold to TRT World, which is a Turkish television channel. And only after all these festivals and the Turkish channel, the Israeli channel came to me and said, you know what, maybe we want to buy it and let's show it on Israel channel anyway. And this for me was a very, very important moment of closing this cycle that I tried so hard for so many years. And then the film had its own route and eventually was shown for the Israeli public on television. It was lately, just a few months ago. Yeah. And for Johnny, he always told me that for him, it's the most important that Israelis watch this film, because he and Thérèse, they felt that Israelis need to see the story from their point of view. So for me and for them, it was a very, very important achievement being shown on Israeli television.
Yeah, amazing.
And the benefits are just, the friendship.
So much.
The friendship and the eye-opening experience, I think, of having someone who's living a few streets away from me, and realizing that all the opportunities that were so known to me, and so that I was sure that everyone has these opportunities. I
Yeah.
realized how privileged I was, and uh, how things are so different, and I learned so much about their community and their life. Just realized how much I have more to learn.
Yeah. Definitely. Amazing. And my final question would be, what advice would you give to aspiring and current filmmakers as well who are, trying to find their story, storytelling style, their voice, and maybe just even, yeah, who are trying to find their story and their voice really? And what advice would you give them?
Um, I think that working hard and believing in yourself, even if you get many no's, just continuing to work. And I think
Mhm.
if you believe in something enough, and if in your heart you have the feeling that this is a story I have to tell, then it will be told. It has to be told. If it has to be told, it will be told by you.
Yeah.
Um, that's my advice.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Emmanuelle, for joining us this morning. And thank you so much to our audience um, for joining us for this Q&A. Um, Please do make sure to sign up to African Motions newsletter to keep up with our events and follow us on social media using our tagline at AIM Film Fest or hashtag AIM Film Fest. Thank you again for joining us and for making such a wonderful film. I absolutely loved it. It was a beautiful story and just thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you so much.